Welcome back to the Wheel of Bad Films. Bats. Hell yeah. I don't know what Bats is. Actually, I did see a clip of this. It looked incredible when I saw it. Okay, it is a 1999 film, 17% on Rotten Tomatoes. Terrific. It's got Lou Diamond Phillips. I think I've heard of Lou Diamond Phillips. Sounds familiar, at least. I don't know. The small Texas town of Gallup is threatened by bats created by a loopy scientist. Oh, I love that already. It's great when your horror film has a character who's a loopy scientist. Only a zoologist and the redneck sheriff can save the town, but as night falls, the menace mounts. Dear God, this is... wow. Hey, we actually have a budget for this film. $5.25 million or $6.5 million. Those are different things. But that's cool at least. There's also a Bats the Awakening. Oh, I'm gonna have to watch that someday. Is this a whole franchise? Holy damn, that would be impressive if it is. This here is actually kind of interesting. It was one of the fastest produced 35mm feature films. It looks like they got the script and the director hired in May of 1999. And the film was released by October of that same year. That's actually kind of insane. And they had 250 plus visual effects. This is actually, I mean, that's a sign, or, you know, that's just going to lead to trouble for your film, but that's kind of fun. I'm glad I also found that Prince of Thieves 17 said that this is their biggest guilty pleasure. You know what? Good for you. We open in Gallup, Texas. Though how do we know this is Texas? Oh yeah, no, this dude's outfit screams Texas. This guy, Quinn, feels something hit him, so he gets out of his car. Or it's to get some brewskis that are out of his trunk, which are definitely warm. Before we can figure out the relationship between these two, they are attacked by bats, because you know, it's called Bats. And they die. Because it's 1999, we get a crazy title card. Now we're in Skull Valley, Arizona. We meet Dr. Sheila Casper and Jimmy. So Sheila's a batologist?
Wildlife zoology, specialty in chiroptera.
Cryo,
Bat sheriff. I work with bats.
A helicopter sneaks up on them and has this doofus and a corrupt warden. They ask her to go to Texas because of...
Bats, Dr. Casper. Bats.
In Texas, we meet a Texan, played by Lou Diamond Phillips. The body of Quinn is examined. Sheriff Emmett mentions the townsfolk thinks it's some sort of cult, but the bite radius on the neck and the giant fang left behind tell Sheila that this was done by...
bats.
Then Emmett explains how this film was pitched.
Wait a second, are you saying some kind of bat did this?
I'm afraid so, Sheriff.
Well, then there is something very wrong here, gentlemen, because this sort of thing is not supposed to happen.
We also find out that this guy, Dr. McCabe, is responsible for this attack as he took some bats from another country and brought them here to test on them. And then they got out. They're also called flying foxes, which is a terrifying name for sure. Flying foxes are some of the largest bats in the world with wingspans up to 5 feet.
Their wingspan can reach a whopping 6 feet.
Well, okay, someone's wrong. They used to be a part of this suborder
Chiroptera.
But they are now seen as part of the suborder Chiroptera. That's 100% correct. This also led me to horseshoe bats, and now I am terrified. But yeah, Sheila, who's the chiropractor now? Sheila agrees to capture these bats, but not to kill them as they are endangered. And Dr. McCabe responds very much like a villain.
I'm not going to let any of you destroy them either.
Oh, don't worry. It won't go that far. I assure you.
Sheila is played by Dana Meyer. She was in the Saw series and, of course, Johnny Mnemonic. Also worth pointing out that the director of this film doesn't have many credits, but he was a second unit director for The Skateboard Kid, which is a movie about a talking skateboard. I'm not kidding.
Oh, I call that an eye-opener. I'm back, and I'm ready to roll.
Best thing going for this film, though, is writer and producer John Logan. He has gone on to write multiple other films, including Ringo, The Aviator, Skyfall, Gladiator, Sweeney Todd, and his best, Sinbad, A Legend of the Seven Seas. Sheila points out where the bats came from as the sheriff gets a call. Another person has died from a bat, but not the same bat. Sheila can explain it by saying bat a lot.
These killings weren't done by a single bat. Our bats must be infecting other bats with the virus.
Maybe if we say bat a few more times.
Any abnormalities infecting the bats is completely host-specific.
So you're saying that the bats can only infect other bats?
Dr. McCabe finally explains that he made these bats take communication 101 and made them more aggressive, and made them omnivores because he's a scientist?
But why would you do that?
Because I'm a scientist.
Science. Well, at least he isn't making them to be killing machines for the government. I mean, because why would he do that? Jimmy then shows us a very high-tech graph explaining how the bats will take over the world in a few months. So they must find the bat roost and eliminate every infected bat. We see a very real moon as the sheriff and Sheila have a conversation.
My mommy used to say, when the moon was red like it is tonight, that there was blood on the moon meant somebody's gonna get killed.
The original name for this film was Blood Moon before being changed to Bats. The German title of the film, it's called Bats Fliegen Teufel, that's 100% accurate, which translates to Flying Devils, which is a pretty cool name. And this is probably wrong as well, but the Taiwan title translates to Bat Sword Fight, which honestly, that would actually make me much more intrigued to watch this film. Bats was the first feature film released by Destination Films. They have made other notable films like Wild Things 2 and I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, and of course, Romeo and Juliet Sealed with a Kiss, which is Romeo and Juliet story with seals. Sheila explains how she became obsessed with bats. You know, actress Dina Meyer is acting here because apparently she has, oh god, that word. So she's scared of bats. Also, we see Sheriff Emmett smoking cigars in a lot of scenes. Apparently Lou Diamond Phillips brought his own cigars. Like, this probably wasn't a part of his character at all. He just wanted something to get through this production. As they talk, a swarm of bats, or a cauldron of bats, attack them, forcing them to take shelter in their car, which definitely worked for the people in the beginning. Jimmy and other officer guys show up to help, and as soon as this officer pulls out his gun, all the bats look over at him, which was actually kind of funny. Instead of going through this rolled down window of their vehicle, the bats just fly away. Well, all but one that Sheila snags up to plant a device on and to locate the roost. Seems like a pretty good plan until these other bats show up and split that bat in half, showing how smart these animals are becoming. Even though we're not halfway through this film yet, the bats launch a full-scale attack on the town, including this officer dude from earlier. This is actually a pretty fun sequence with lots of stunts and lots of bats. This film combines CGI bats with animatronics and puppets, and apparently 2 live bats. Don't know where those live bats are in this film though. There were 15 puppeteers who worked with 30 bat puppets during this film. As the bats wreck this town, taking out signs and bringing down electrical poles, my favorite part is this bar where this occupant seems unfazed by all the chaos going on outside. The bar owner isn't though, as he goes outside and fires off at the bats. Then randomly, this one guy gets thrown through a window and we still see that dude chilling in the bar. The bats finally decide to attack Sheila, but because she's the main character, the doofus character from earlier intervenes just to get killed. And apparently Sheila's really heartbroken about it, but like, you know, that dude wasn't adding much. Apparently the guy who played that CDC agent actually got signed on to the production of this film 2 days before shooting. So you know what? Good for him. Now it's the next day and the military has shown up. We also learned that they have 48 hours to find the roost or the military's just gonna blow up everything in or around Gallup. And Dr. McCabe is still here, definitely not to do something evil. They're gonna use satellites to check infrared to find the bats or something. And apparently the military's too lazy to deal with any of this, or, you know, the plot is just doesn't want to, you know, add new characters. So Sheila has to take on the responsibility. They fortify a school to a montage set to classical music. It's a nice change of pace, even though the scene goes on for quite a bit. They decide that they will freeze the bats to death. To do this, they'll have to find the roost when they are sleeping, so during the day, and bring in some sort of coolant or freezing device and freeze them to death. Seems 100% logical. And Sheila will also have to go into the roost because, you know, someone needs to go in there to activate it, and, you know, she'll put herself in danger, but she's fine with it, I guess. Jimmy was just able to call up Langley, and they will supply them with chemicals to help freeze the bats. Then they also discover that the bats are chilling in a mine. They tell the military where they are, but McCabe has a different idea. Turns out that this experiment has been going on for a decade, and well, the government was apparently responsible for it. What a twist! I did not see that coming. With some diopter shots, McCabe explains that he did create these bats to be the perfect killing machine. So it turns out that he was evil after all, which, wow, I I saw that coming. He was able to somehow call the bats here, and they show up to the school. They do their darndest to break in and get a few good bites on them. The fences that they set up earlier with the jumper cables, they set those off, even though in real life this wouldn't work because science. It actually blows up everything. McCabe runs outside for no reason and sees a couple bats stayed behind.
Don't you see? They want me.
He proclaims that he's a bat god and then gets murdered by the bats. The next day they go to the cave where they see that the military did their darndest to take out the bats the night before, but failed. They got the freezer system installed but not turned on, so they have to go into the cave and activate it. They also get a radio call from a major that a bomb will be dropped in about an hour, and he also tells them his favorite Jordan Peele movie.
Get out.
We get another gear up montage as both the sheriff and Sheila enter the cave. We get a shot that clearly inspired Matt Reeves as they have to navigate through guano, which is a scientific term referring to
Bad shit.
They get to the epicenter of this mine and see a lot of bats. They turn on the freezing device, but the bats seem to not like that, because you know the whole dying thing is something they're not all about. The bats attack them before Sheila pulls out a flare, burning one of the bats' faces off, giving us a two-faced bat. She fires a gun, which somehow electrocutes all the bats. Right as they get out of the cave, Jimmy blows it up. Jimmy calls off the bombing. And if the jet footage looks kinda grainy, it's because it's from another film called Iron Eagle 2, and apparently the first Iron Eagle was shown on Cobra Kai with Billy Zabka from Python 2, which means that Bats is connected to Python 2. Sheila looks on, realizing that she has gone against her whole not wanting to kill Bats thing, and they walk off with no chance for a sequel. On second thought, maybe there would be. Never mind. And that's the film. This is by far the best film I have covered on the Wheel Bad Films. It's goofy and cheesy, sure, but by far the most competent put together film. It also doesn't look like complete shit like every other film I've covered, which is definitely a big plus. This would be the first film on the wheel that I would actually recommend to you because it's actually okay. Thanks for watching, and hopefully your house doesn't become filled with military altered omnivore flying foxes. Bye.